I stood under the awning of the coffee shop across from our office building, watching the water cascade off the edge in a steady curtain. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't reach for it. I knew who it was. The same person who'd been texting me increasingly frequently over the past 3 months, ever since I'd started working as her executive assistant. Naomi Winters. My boss. The woman who'd interviewed me with cool professionalism and hired me on the spot, saying something about my resume speaking for itself. What she hadn't said, what neither of us had acknowledged in that bright conference room with its floor-to-ceiling windows, was that we'd known each other before. 6 years ago. A different city, a different version of ourselves. A different kind of relationship entirely. The coffee shop door chimed behind me, and I felt rather than saw her approach. She always moved like that, purposeful and contained, every gesture economical. She stopped beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and understated that I didn't recognize. Everything about her now was expensive and understated. The tailored charcoal suit, the Italian leather bag, the watch that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "You're avoiding me," she said. "Not a question." I kept my eyes on the rain. "I'm standing right here." "You know what I mean, Riley." My name in her mouth felt like a memory surfacing from deep water. "You've been different lately. Distant." "We're colleagues, Naomi. Professional distance seems appropriate." She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Is that what we are? Colleagues?" I finally turned to look at her. Her dark hair was pulled back in that severe bun she favored for work, a few strands escaping around her face. She looked tired. Beautiful, always beautiful, but tired in a way that made something ache in my chest. "What else would we be?" "I saw you yesterday," she said quietly. "At that restaurant in the Pearl District. With her." My stomach dropped. "You were following me?" "No. I was there for a business dinner. You were 3 tables away." She paused, her jaw working like she was trying to decide whether to continue. "You looked happy." "You were laughing at something," she said, "and you had that look on your face. The one you used to get when—" She stopped herself, turning away. Meredith. The woman I'd been seeing for 2 months, casual and uncomplicated in all the ways my life usually wasn't. She was a graphic designer with her own studio, warm and funny and completely unconnected to my professional world. Safe, in other words. The opposite of standing in the rain with the one person who'd ever made me feel like I was burning from the inside out. "I'm allowed to have a personal life," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I know that." Naomi's hands clenched at her sides. "I know you are." "I have no right to feel," she broke off, shaking her head. "This is unprofessional. I shouldn't have brought it up." "Then why did you?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something raw and unguarded in her expression. "Because I hate it. I hate seeing you with someone else. I hate that you smile at her the way you used to smile at me. I hate coming into the office every day and pretending we're just boss and employee when every time you walk into my office I remember what it felt like to wake up next to you." The confession hung in the air between us, impossible to take back. A car passed, sending up a spray of water that nearly reached our feet. Naomi closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, that careful mask had slipped back into place. "Almost. Forget I said that," she said. "I'll see you tomorrow." She started to walk away, toward the parking garage, and I should have let her go. Should have gone home to my small apartment, called Meredith, maintained the careful boundaries I'd constructed. Instead, I heard myself say, "You left." She stopped walking. "You left," I repeated, louder now. 6 years ago. You said you couldn't do it anymore, that you needed to focus on your career, that we wanted different things. You broke up with me via text message while I was visiting my mom, Naomi. You don't get to show up in my life again as my boss and tell me you hate seeing me happy with someone else." She turned slowly, and I saw that her composure was fracturing. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't regret it every single day?" Her voice rose slightly, passion breaking through that careful control. "I was 26 and terrified. My mother had just been diagnosed, and the company was restructuring, and you were talking about maybe moving in together, maybe adopting a dog, maybe building this whole life, and I panicked. I made the worst mistake of my life, and I've had to live with it." "So have I," said quietly. The rain kept falling. Somewhere in the city, people were having normal Thursday evenings, uncomplicated by history and longing and all the ways we break each other's hearts. I thought about Meredith, about her easy laughter and the way she never asked me about the parts of myself I kept locked away. I thought about how safe that felt. How utterly unlike this. I applied for this job because I needed it, I told Naomi. The pay was better, the opportunity was better. I didn't know you worked here. When I walked into that interview and saw you sitting there, I almost walked back out. But I needed this job, and you clearly needed someone competent, and we're both adults. I thought we could make it work. Can we? She asked. I don't know anymore. She stepped closer, close enough now that I could see the rain on her eyelashes, the way her throat moved when she swallowed. What do you want me to do, Riley? Tell me, and I'll do it. If you want me to transfer to another division, I will. If you want to quit, and I'll write you the best recommendation letter you've ever seen. If you want me to pretend that seeing you every day doesn't make me want to go back in time and make different choices. I can't tell you what to do, I interrupted. That's not fair to either of us. Nothing about this is fair, she said. But I need you to know, I need you to understand that when I hired you, I told myself it would be fine. That I was over it, over you, that it had been 6 years and people change and move on. And then you walked into my office on your first day and asked me where you should set up your desk, and you had that same look of determined competence you always got when you were starting something new, and I realized I hadn't moved on at all. I'd just been waiting. My phone buzzed again. Meredith, probably, wondering where I was. We were supposed to have dinner tonight, some new Thai place she'd been excited to try. I'd forgotten all about it. This is my life now, I said, gesturing vaguely at the phone in my pocket, at the ordinary evening I was supposed to be having. Meredith is uncomplicated. She doesn't know about my past, about you. She likes me for who I am right now, not who I used to be. And is that enough for you? Naomi asked. Being liked for a version of yourself that doesn't include all the parts you're not showing her? The question hit harder than I wanted to admit. I thought about all the times Meredith had asked me about my previous relationships and I'd given her vague, sanitized answers. The way I changed the subject whenever she wanted to know more about my family, my history, the years before we met. The careful curation of myself I'd become so good at. It's easier, I finally said. I'm sure it is. Naomi's voice was soft now, almost sad. I'm sure it's much easier than this. Than standing in the rain with your boss who's telling you she still loves you even though she has no right to, even though she destroyed what you had, even though it's completely inappropriate and unprofessional and potentially career-ending for both of us. The word love hung in the air like smoke. She hadn't said it, not back then. We'd been together for almost 2 years, and she'd said care about, and important to me, and once memorably essential, but never love. I told myself it didn't matter, that some people just didn't use that word easily, that I knew how she felt from the way she looked at me, touched me, laughed at my terrible jokes at 3 a.m. when neither of us could sleep. You're saying it now, I said. 6 years too late, but you're saying it. Would it have made a difference then? She asked. If I'd said it before I left? I thought about the girl I'd been at 24, so sure that love was enough, that if we just wanted it badly enough we could make anything work. I thought about the woman I'd become, careful and guarded and so determined not to be hurt like that again. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. You still would have been scared, and I still would have been too young to understand that sometimes people leave even when they love you. I am so sorry, she said, and her voice cracked slightly on the last word. For all of it. For how I ended things, for not being brave enough to stay, for thinking I could have you in my life again in any capacity without it destroying me. I'm sorry for making this complicated when you've clearly tried to move on. I wanted to tell her it wasn't complicated, that I had moved on, that what I felt standing here with her was just nostalgia and rain and the particular melancholy of Thursday evenings. But I'd never been good at lying to her, and I wasn't about to start now. I should go, I said instead. I'm supposed to meet Meredith for dinner. Of course. Naomi stepped back, creating distance between us again. I'll see you tomorrow. And Riley, I meant what I said. If you need me to make this easier by leaving, by transferring, I will. You shouldn't have to quit a job you're good at because I couldn't keep my feelings to myself. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and stepped out into the rain. My car was parked 2 blocks away, and by the time I reached it I was soaked through, my hair plastered to my head, my clothes clinging uncomfortably. I sat in the driver's seat and didn't start the engine. My phone buzzed again, a text from Meredith asking if I was okay, if I'd forgotten about dinner. I stared at the message, at the little heart emoji she always included, at the casual affection of someone who didn't know that my boss had just told me she loved me in the rain outside our office building. I texted back that I wasn't feeling well, that we should reschedule. She replied immediately with sympathy and concern, telling me to get some rest, to let her know if I needed anything. Sweet, uncomplicated Meredith, who probably wouldn't have confessed her feelings in the rain like some character in a romance novel, who approached relationships with healthy boundaries and clear communication and all the things therapists recommend. I drove home in silence, the rain hammering on the roof of my car. My apartment felt too quiet when I let myself in, too empty of everything except my own thoughts. I changed into dry clothes and made tea I didn't drink and sat on my couch staring at nothing while my mind played and replayed the conversation with Naomi. 6 years. It had been 6 years since she'd sent that text message, clinical and brief, explaining that she thought it was best if they ended things now before they got too serious, before it became too complicated to untangle their lives. I'd read it 3 times sitting in my childhood bedroom, my mother in the next room asking if I wanted more coffee, completely unaware that my world was quietly imploding. I'd texted back asking if we could talk about it, if this was really what she wanted, if there was anything I could do. She'd replied that her mind was made up, that she was sorry, that she hoped I understood. I hadn't understood. Not then, sitting on that narrow twin bed surrounded by remnants of my adolescence. Not in the months after, when I'd had to train myself not to reach for my phone first thing in the morning to send her a good morning text. Not even now, really, though I'd built a whole new life around the absence she'd left behind. My phone rang, startling me. Meredith's name flashed on the screen. I considered not answering, but that seemed cruel, so I picked up. "Hey," I said, trying to inject some energy into my voice. "Sorry about dinner." "Don't apologize," she said warmly. "I'm just worried about you. You've seemed off lately. Is everything okay at work? You mentioned your boss has been piling on extra projects." I closed my eyes. Meredith knew I worked in a corporate office as an executive assistant, knew my boss was demanding and particular about details. She didn't know that my boss was a woman I used to love, used to wake up next to, used to plan a future with. She didn't know that sometimes I caught Naomi looking at me with an expression that made my stomach flip, or that I'd started taking the stairs instead of the elevator to avoid those 30 seconds of enclosed silence. "Work is fine," I said. "Just a lot going on." "Well, maybe this weekend we could get away for a bit? There's that bed and breakfast up the coast I was telling you about. We could do some hiking, have some time away from the city. What do you think?" I thought about spending a weekend with Meredith, about pretending to be the version of myself she knew, easygoing and present and capable of enjoying a romantic getaway without constantly comparing it to weekends I'd spent 6 years ago in a different life. I thought about how exhausting it would be, and how unfair to her. "Can I let you know tomorrow?" I asked. "I'm really not feeling well tonight, and I don't want to commit to something and then have to cancel." "Of course," she said, and I could hear the slight hurt in her voice that she was trying to hide. "Feel better, okay? Text me if you need anything." After we hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness and thought about honesty. About all the ways we hide ourselves from the people we're supposed to be close to. About whether it was possible to build something real on a foundation of careful omissions. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, before most of the staff. I made coffee in the small kitchenette on our floor and tried to prepare myself for seeing Naomi again. For pretending last night hadn't happened, that she hadn't said what she'd said, that I hadn't driven home afterward feeling like my carefully constructed life was suddenly too small to hold everything I was feeling. She arrived at 7:30, exactly as she did every morning. I heard her heels in the hallway, heard her office door open and close. Usually, I waited a few minutes before bringing her the coffee I'd prepared exactly the way she liked it, 2 sugars, a splash of cream. Usually, I knocked twice and she called for me to enter, and we discussed her schedule for the day with professional courtesy and nothing more. Today, I stood in the kitchenette holding her coffee cup and wondered if we could possibly go back to that. If we'd ever really achieved it in the first place, or if we'd just been performing normalcy while the history between us hummed like a live wire. I knocked. She called for me to enter. I walked in and set the coffee on her desk, and when I looked up, she was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're welcome." Neither of us moved. The morning sun streamed through her windows, backlighting her so that I had to squint slightly to see her face clearly. She'd worn her hair down today, which she almost never did for work, and it softened her features in a way that made her look younger, more like the woman I'd known before. "Riley," she started, then stopped. "About yesterday." "We don't have to talk about it," I said quickly. "It's fine. We can just forget it happened." "Can we?" she asked. "Can you honestly forget it?" I wanted to lie. I opened my mouth to tell her yes, of course, it was just a moment of stress and rain and nostalgia, nothing more. But she was looking at me with those eyes that had always seen through my careful defenses, and I found I couldn't do it. "No," I admitted. "I don't think I can." She nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something she already knew. "I didn't sleep last night. I kept thinking about what I said to you, about how inappropriate it was, about how I've put you in an impossible position. And I realized that I can't keep doing this. I can't keep coming to work every day and pretending I don't feel what I feel while watching you build a life with someone else." My heart started racing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm going to request a transfer," she said. "To the Seattle office. They've been asking for someone to head up their expansion project, and I've been putting them off, but I think it's time. It's the right thing to do, for both of us." "Seattle," I repeated dumbly. "That's 5 hours away." "I know where Seattle is, Riley." "When would you leave?" "They'd want me to start within the month. I'd need to find someone to replace me here, train them, tie up loose ends. 6 weeks, maybe." 6 weeks. It felt both impossibly soon and unbearably far away. I tried to imagine this office without Naomi in it, tried to imagine having a different boss, someone I didn't have history with. Someone who would just be a boss, nothing more. It should have felt like relief. It didn't. "You don't have to do that," I said. "Yes, I do." She stood up, walked around her desk. "Last night I told you I hated seeing you with someone else, and that was selfish and unfair. You've moved on. You're building something with Meredith, and you shouldn't have to worry about your boss having feelings for you. It's not appropriate, and it's not fair to you." "What about what's fair to you?" I asked. She smiled, sad and small. "I gave up the right to prioritize that when I ended things 6 years ago. This is me trying to do the right thing now, even if it's 6 years too late." I should have agreed with her. Should have said yes, a transfer makes sense, it's professional and clean and will make everything easier. Should have thanked her for being mature enough to recognize that this situation was untenable. Instead, I found myself saying, "What if I don't want you to go?" The words hung in the air between us, impossible to take back. Naomi's expression shifted, hope and confusion and something else flickering across her face. "Riley, you're seeing someone. You just told me last night that she's uncomplicated, that you like what you have with her." I know what I said. "Then what are you saying now?" I didn't know. I didn't know what I was saying, what I wanted, what any of this meant. I just knew that the thought of Naomi leaving again, even for good reasons, even to make things easier, felt wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. "I'm saying I need time," I said finally. "I'm saying don't make any decisions yet. Give me a few days to think about this, to figure out what I want." "And Meredith?" she asked quietly. "I need to talk to her. I need to be honest with her about," I gestured vaguely between us. "About all of this. She deserves that." Naomi nodded slowly. "Okay. A few days. But Riley, I need you to understand that if you decide you want to make things work with Meredith, I will still transfer. I can't stay here and watch you be happy with someone else. I thought I could, but I can't." "I understand." She returned to her seat behind her desk, and just like that, we slipped back into our professional roles. She asked me about her schedule, I reminded her of her 10 o'clock conference call and her lunch meeting with the marketing team. We discussed a presentation she was preparing and whether we had all the necessary data. To anyone watching, we would have looked perfectly normal, just a boss and her assistant coordinating another busy day. But underneath it all, everything had changed. Again. I made it through the morning on autopilot, responding to emails and organizing files and taking phone calls with a competence that existed entirely separate from the churning in my stomach. At noon, I texted Meredith and asked if we could meet for coffee after work. She responded immediately, saying she'd love to, suggesting the place near her studio. The afternoon dragged. I caught myself watching the clock, dreading the conversation I needed to have. At 4:30, I packed up my things and told Naomi I was leaving slightly early. She looked up from her laptop, and something in her expression told me she knew what I was doing. "Good luck," she said quietly. The coffee shop where I met Meredith was bright and modern, all white walls and hanging plants and artfully mismatched furniture. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her, my usual order and hers. She smiled when she saw me, warm and genuine, and guilt twisted in my stomach. "Hey," she said, standing to hug me. "You look better than you sounded last night." I sat down across from her, wrapping my hands around the coffee cup for something to hold on to. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course." She studied my face, her smile fading slightly. "Is everything okay? You sounded kind of serious in your text." I took a breath. "I need to tell you something. About my boss." "Okay," she said slowly. 6 years ago, before I moved to this city, I was in a relationship. A serious one. We were together for almost 2 years, and I thought we were building towards something permanent. And then she ended it, out of nowhere, via text message while I was out of town. Meredith's expression shifted to sympathy. "Riley, that's awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you." "The woman who ended things with me," I continued, forcing myself to meet her eyes, "is Naomi. My current boss. I didn't know she worked at the company when I applied. When I walked into that interview and saw her, I almost left. But I needed the job, and I thought enough time had passed that we could be professional about it." I watched the understanding dawn on Meredith's face, watched her piece together all the times I'd been vague about my boss, all the occasions I'd seemed distracted or distant. "Oh," she said quietly. "Yesterday, after work, she told me that she still has feelings for me. That seeing me with you is difficult for her. And I need to be honest with you, I have feelings for her too. I've been trying not to, trying to move on, trying to build something real with you. But it's not fair to you for me to keep pretending like this history doesn't exist, like it doesn't affect how I show up in our relationship." Meredith was quiet for a long moment, staring down at her coffee. When she finally looked up, there was hurt in her eyes but also a kind of resigned understanding. "I knew something was off," she said. "I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that you were just private about your past, but there was always this wall between us. Parts of you I couldn't reach." "I'm sorry," I said. "You deserved better than that. You deserve someone who can be fully present, who isn't carrying all this baggage." She laughed, short and without humor. "The thing is, I really like you, Riley. When you're actually present, when you let yourself be, you're funny and thoughtful and kind. But you're right, there's always been something held back. I thought maybe with time, with patience, you'd let me in. But this isn't about time or patience, is it? It's about someone else." "It's about me," I said. "About things I haven't dealt with, feelings I haven't processed. That's not your responsibility to fix." "Are you going to try to work things out with her?" Meredith asked. "With your boss?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It's complicated. The power dynamic, the history, the fact that she's the one who left. I don't know if that's something we can get past. But I know I need to figure it out before I can be fair to anyone else. Before I can be fair to you." Meredith nodded, and I could see her eyes getting glassy. "I appreciate you being honest with me. Finally." There was no malice in her voice, just sadness. "For what it's worth, I hope you figure it out. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." "I'm sorry," I said again. "I really did care about you. That was real." "I know," she said. "But caring isn't always enough, is it?" We finished our coffee in careful conversation, talking about work and her latest design project and nothing that mattered. When we said goodbye outside the coffee shop, she hugged me tightly, and I felt the finality of it. Another ending, another person walking away from me. Except this time, I was the one who'd initiated it. This time, I was choosing the messy, complicated truth over the easy comfort of pretending.